Welcome to Horror Movies and Beyond. I'm your host, Ivotres Littles, and this is Shudderary, where we go behind the screens of Shudder original and exclusive movies. Today, I have a really awesome guest. She's co host on Blurty Massacre podcast and an advocate for Black horror representation. Let's welcome Zero Gravity.
Good to be back, my friends. Happy Shudderary.
Yes. happy Shudderary. And oh my goodness, it's almost over.
Yeah. Sheds a tear, a quick tear.
Because I dedicate so much time to this and then to realize that it's almost over. It's like, oh my goodness.
I
So
know you're relieved though. You need a cocktail after all this.
the shifty eyes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's get started. There will be spoilers. So if you've never seen this film that we're going to talk about, The Beach House, I highly recommend checking it out. But stay, because we got lots to talk about. But before we get into that, let's tell us a little bit about yourself, Zero.
Well, my name is Zero Gravity. I am a content creator and host based here in New York City. I'm also known as New York City's spookiest MC. I run charity events, parties, trivia, everything in between. And when I'm not on my feet, I'm at home recording with my buddies for Blurty Massacre podcast and watching movies, as you can see as my shelf behind me.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, exciting, and exhausting. How do you have any time? You put a little bit of yourself in that conversation right there. Just a little bit of myself. I'm watching movies.
Yes.
Well, horror movies, I just love them. And very interested to talk about the one that you picked, The Beach House. It is a Shudder original. And like I said, there will be some spoilers. So let's get started on this. The Beach House. I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay.
I have lots to say. I do. I have lots to say. It is directed by what's his name? Jeff Brown or Jeffrey Brown. And he wrote it too. I want to put that out there. There's also something else about this. He's a location manager. He was primarily a location manager. So he doesn't have any directing experience. So this is kind of his first film, kind of.
That's
So yeah.
interesting. I would
Yeah.
not be able to guess that.
Yeah, I was nosy. and I looked through it and I was like, what? Okay. It explains a lot, but we'll get into that. So why do you choose this film? What about this film that caught your attention?
I love this film. Mostly, well, I like this film for a lot of reasons. I'm a big fan of the beach. I love the beach. And that's what brought me into this movie originally. I was really excited when you hit me up to be part of Shudderary. And then you let me know that I could pick a Shudder original from any year. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm going with then. I feel like this movie didn't really get the applause that I think it deserved. But for people out there who are fans of goop and sticky substances and all that good body horror goodness, this is something that you should maybe put on your watch list. And that's why I fell in love with the film, because I'm deep into the give me the ooey gooiness, the ooey gooiness of it all. And there was plenty of it here. And yeah, sorry to put you through that, but you know how I am.
I know. So this film, so it's about a couple's beach getaway turns terrifying when an environmental contagion takes hold. I think the description of the movie, it doesn't necessarily match the movie. I mean, it feels more terrifying in the description than what you're actually seeing. I don't know. It kind of is. It felt like it was almost there. Like I see so much potential of so much stuff that could have happened. Some more grossness, especially that thing in the basement. We'll get into that. Um,
Mm.
just a lot of gagging and throwing up and weird stuff. I just feel
Mhm.
like I feel like there was so much time where we could have more of it instead of
Mhm.
what we got in the beginning. But I mean, it starts off that we're looking in an ocean and it's very peaceful. And then you see like this mist of something that's spreading. And then you see the rocks where it's just like coming out of every which way.
Mhm.
Um, I've seen stuff like that on National Geographic and Discovery, so it got me shaken. I was like, I don't think I'm going in the beach.
Mhm.
The beach is a little that's frightening. I felt like does is that what that really is? I'm sorry.
Well, when
I
I
mean,
when I think when I first watched it, I didn't pay it any mind because I think about the beach and then, when you go to the beach, you get a lot of like, um, what's the word? Like mist. If you're by the beach and the waves are crashing, sure, like the air is very moist because there's a lot of mist. And at this time, and also I will admit, I didn't read the synopsis before I watched this movie for the first time. So I was just like, a couple at a beach house, like cool, sounds good and normal and wholesome, right?
mhm.
And so the mist in the beginning didn't didn't phase me at all. I'm just like, like a normal day at the beach. And we did get a lot of like let's say like couple dynamic exposure in the beginning. We clearly learned that just like the synopsis says, we have a couple and they go to the beach house and it kind of seems like they're trying to patch up their relationship. They kind of got some stuff that they need to figure out. Which couple doesn't have some stuff that they need to figure out. So in my first watch, in my mind, I'm thinking this is going to be some kind of psychological maybe like gaslighty, culty kind of relationship dynamic type movie, but maybe I should have been paying attention to that mist because I was so wrong.
So that brings us to Randall. Oh, hold on. Okay. Let's start all over here. Oh my goodness. Can we get them? Okay, there we go. Randall and Emily. Is it Emily? Am I
Yeah.
saying that right? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. So they arrive at this beach house and they notice like the beach is like deserted. There's nobody on the beach and it's a beach house. Another beach house is right then. I would have been gone. I'd be like, no, I don't think this is the time and place because there was nobody there on the beach. She was like, we're the only ones. I was like, no. So they go into this house. They didn't even pay attention what was going on. They just went into the house and he was like, so what do you want to do? And then right away, they just did their business. But the conversation that he had with her about her life, talking about,
Mhm.
oh, don't go to school, don't do nothing. We'll just lay around and be at the beach. I was like, red flags
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Serious red flags here. And this is like continuing my initial watch. I did watch this again to prepare for our discussion today, but my initial watch, we get the red flags and I'm like, "Oh, he is somehow going to turn himself into the villain, you know, because, these red flags are coming up. And so all of our alert is like kind of centered on this guy who's got this crappy attitude about a woman who wants to better herself and go get her master's degree, which is, hey, if she wants to do that, then that's awesome for her. And you should encourage that. But it's interesting that this red flag is popping up and my attention is on you. But again, I was deceived.
Completely toxic. I mean, how do you? He was more toxic than that chemical stuff going or whatever was flying
Yeah.
around.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, he was just like, live. Let's just leave school. I mean, I don't want to, forget school, just leave your life, like, just forget everything. And she was like, what about you?
Mhm.
I can't do this. I'm just like, just what are you going to do? Are they lay around? Because that's kind of what I was getting from that. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
no.
Mhm.
So she goes and gets dressed. Well, first of all, I could tell it was a really toxic relationship because she was getting dressed to go to the bathroom. He's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like,
Mhm.
she's like, "I'm
Mhm.
going to the bathroom." Like, mm-mm, no, girl, no, get out while you can.
Yeah,
But
right?
yeah, she goes creeping around the house and realize that she hears someone downstairs and doing some weird stuff at the table. And she's like running up there. Oh my God, there's somebody downstairs. He's like, nobody's supposed to be here. Okay. And it sounds like she's chucking like oysters or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what she was doing, yeah.
Very, very nasty house guest. That house was nasty. I was like, they just left the house nasty. So we meet Mitch. It's Mitch and Jan or Jane. I
Mhm.
think it's Jan.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we meet them and they didn't know they were supposed to be there. And they start talking and explaining and stuff like that. And I don't know. What do you think about these two? Their relationship was kind of weird because at this dinner table, when they were talking, and eating those oysters from the ocean. So, which is, I think,
Mhm.
at some point is important. But that
Yeah.
conversation, what do you think
I
about
think that
that?
the conversation was just, like, really awkward and cringe, and, imagine if, you are on the tail ends of your relationship, and, now you have to really explain yourselves to this couple who supposedly knew them, because apparently, so the beach house belongs to Randall's father, who we
Yeah.
later learn that they're estranged, and it turns out
Mhm.
that this couple, Mitch and Jane, are family friends of the father and haven't seen Randall since he was like yay big. And so of course now the couple is all with the, what are you studying in college? And then this terrible, terrible rant, which just strengthens the red flags that we had already put up, right? Making the whole dynamic of the dinner just very awkward. And to your point, it's they're having a dinner filled with mussels because we're on the beach. They probably caught some nice fresh mussels, which might be another very subtle red flag. But I just think that it's interesting. I think it's interesting that I want to say the first 20 minutes of this film, they really make Randall out to be like a bad guy, because first he gives Emily his opinions of what she should do with her life, even though she's clearly a driven woman and has a plan
Mhm.
for herself. And then they're interrupted by this family, and he basically just embarrasses himself at the dinner and takes it upon himself to make things awkward. So that's like 2 strikes for this guy, and which is really it's not about him at all, but it was definitely awkward. There was something a little bit odd about the couple, though. We do learn later that Jane might be dealing with like dementia or Alzheimer's, which is why Mitch, her husband, is very adamant about, I need to find my wife. I need to,
Mhm.
she's a little loopy. She needs to make sure, I need to make sure that she has her meds and everything. But not to the point where I'm like, laser vision on them. Right now, at this
Mhm.
really awkward dinner situation, I'm just thinking about how Randall is gonna mess this up for everybody.
Well, he showed it messed it up for me. I mean, because you have Emily talking about, oh, she wants to get into astrobiology, go to all these great schools, and he's sitting there trying to figure out what sauce to put on his food. Like you could
Yeah,
tell he's not even paying attention.
right.
And Mitch and Jane is like, hey, tell me about it. I didn't know this. Wow, like she's so smart. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And in his conversation the dialogue that he threw out there just had me. I was gone. I was like, what is this? If she never wanted to leave, now she does. Because
Mhm.
when he said, I even wrote it down. Because he said, so this is Randall talking. He's like, he's like, what is it with school? I needed to get away. You know, after he didn't want to go to school, he dropped out or whatever. He said, they're farming graduates. It's like, what am I learning? What's the point of education? To get a job? I was done. I was done. I was like, so what are you gonna do? Because you want her to lay up all day. You don't want to do
Mhm.
anything. Oh, he was just and the way she looked, Emily just looked like she was so disgusted and
Yeah.
embarrassed.
Almost like, "Get me out of here," right?
Hmm. But at this time, nothing happens. We don't see anything weird happen. Um, and we're pretty significant in the movie for
Mhm.
still nothing really going on
Right.
except they start to notice like this cloud thing going on, and they go outside
Mhm. I
and
think they think it's just like, "Oh, wow, like, it's a really foggy night," right? It's like, "It's really foggy tonight." That's peculiar, but still nothing,
and
like, too out of the ordinary, right?
no, and the fog is kind of a different color.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, the fog is blue, has some blue
Not
things
normal.
floating around. No, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. Have you ever been to the beach and you saw like this misty blue on the edge? Like when the water
Yeah.
or uh, see? So we should be worried because here where I say in Long Beach, every time when you walk the beach and then the waves crash and you're like, what
Uh-huh.
is that blue? I
Mhm.
thought it was me tripping, but it's actual microbes that do that. Girl.
Mhm. Mhm. Which is a little bit of a foreshadowing, you know what I mean? Mhm.
We might be out of here. Something horrible, maybe.
Very,
so
very
what's
soon.
so at this point, does this remind you of anything? Like, I don't know.
I
Like
mean,
I
well,
felt
to
go ahead.
be, like, straight up,
Hmm.
this whole dream sequence so in the image that we're looking at, right, they run out of wine, I think, at the dinner, and
Hmm.
then, Randall proposes, "Oh, well, hey, I have some edibles," and they're really weird edibles, right? Like, this is not normal marijuana business. It's and even Emily at one point is like, like, this is some really strong shit," you know? And
Hmm.
then we lose Jane. Jane wanders down to the beach, and then we see this, and in my mind, to be, like, completely shallow, I'm like, "Okay, we just traveled into the land of the Avatar." This looks like the Avatar, like, Na'vi planet to me, with the neon blue, and, particles flying everywhere, so I'm almost thinking that this is kind of like a dream sequence of her. The only thing we know about Jane so far is that she might be struggling with some health issues and she has to take meds. So maybe I'm thinking, okay, the edibles that she took are mixing with her meds, and now she's having this weird, um, like hallucination of something. But we then learn that's not the truth because then we never see her again after this.
Well, we never see her right after this.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have Mitch, I gotta find her. But his conversation with Emily outside gave me some vibes. Like it was the
Hmm.
way he was talking to him just wasn't right. Like, I mean, talking
Hmm.
to her, Emily, outside. I don't know. He was off. Jane was off. Everybody was off at this point. It's
Yeah.
still nothing is really
You know what
happening.
I think though? Because you brought up a
Hmm.
really good point earlier that I didn't think about. But when they were sitting at the dinner table together, they're eating oysters. And when they
Hmm.
first come upon Jane in the house, she's shucking oysters. So I'm thinking maybe the reason that Mitch and Jane felt to the viewer felt so off and so weird is because they were already dealing with things from the ocean from before, because they had prepared this dinner with the oysters. And also during the dinner we hear Emily say that she doesn't like oysters,
Mhm.
but Randall did eat one. So I guess that actually, now that you bring up the oysters, that does make sense, that they would be a little peculiar in this
Mhm.
situation, like, so not early in the film, but early in the sequence of events, you know what I mean? Because that discussion on the what do you call that, on the porch, on the deck of the
Mhm.
house, was was a little weird, a little weird. Yeah.
it was it was a little weird. Almost like, where's Chris Hansen? Because he gave me some vibes. I was like, I don't know.
Mhm.
It was the I think it was the delivery of the dialogue. Like
Yeah.
some of the yeah, it just wasn't good. Anyway, but it then you have Jane out there by herself coughing up a storm, and then that's where we start to see this mist gets very invasive. Like it starts
Yeah.
really getting weird, and everybody's getting sick and having you know illusions or weird stuff, falling asleep, waking up at different times. It was just
Mhm.
still nothing is going on until you see her later. She's sick. Jane is sick. Like she's sitting at the table because Emily and Randall fell asleep upstairs and came down, and she's at the table staring into space. It's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know,
Now it's getting really weird. But
yeah, yeah. Now
again,
it's
we're
finally,
disguising it as, "Oh, like, she just needs to take her meds." But Emily is really freaked out. At this
yeah.
point, this is the point where I believe that Emily kinda has an inkling that something is
Hmm.
going on. Obviously, she doesn't know what's going on, but she has an inkling that something might
Yeah.
be happening.
Hmm. And so this is where everything starts to, like, you start to get engaged, and then I'm sorry, the dialogue at this point was just off to me, and I'll tell you why. But anyway, so Jan is sick. She goes away. She's barfing and throwing up or whatever. And they wake up and Mitch is gone. They're like, where's Mitch? He
Mhm.
just left her. And so let's go to the beach. So they go to the beach. And this is why I was like, this is funny, because one would say Mr. Turner, the other one would say Mitch, and the other Mr. Turner and Mitch. Like he wouldn't know who name they were talking about. It just kept bouncing back and forth. Have you noticed that? Like it was just, I don't
I
know. That was the
did.
only thing that kind of, I don't know. That was a little annoying.
It didn't
Did you
really,
get
like, bother me much.
it?
I
Mm-hmm.
just kind of think it was, like, I remember when I moved when I was younger, and not being sure whether to call my neighbors either Mr. and Mrs. So and so, or do I call them by their first name? I don't know what they respond to. And just knowing that Emily and Randall, I mean, Randall knew this couple when he was like a baby. They talked about
Mm-hmm.
earlier, but they really don't know this couple. So I kind of saw it as just like kind of desperation, like anything they could get him to respond to, they would yell
Mm-hmm.
out. Um, but, I mean, they also could have been confused. Hey, I mean, the part that really confused me about this scene is, so they're looking for Mitch, right? They're looking for
Mm-hmm.
him. They're screaming out his name. They're like, "Oh, let's go check the beach. He might have gone for a walk because he's certainly not in the house." And then they decide to sit down and take a nap on the beach while you're
That
looking for a missing person whose wife is back at the house upstairs, sick and potentially in danger. So I'm like, now, guys, like now is not a good time to have a nap on the beach, which then tells me that, something was probably wrong with them too, because that's just not right. That's
and
not right.
but they had no sunscreen. They had nothing. They
No,
just laid out in the
nothing. No
sun. And I
SPF,
was
not even
thinking,
a
oh, they're gonna be
towel.
was like, oh my God, let me just lay out. And they did. And I was like, God, they're going to be burnt up. And they were laying there for a minute.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Randall jumps up, his stomach started bubbling or whatever it was
Mhm.
doing. And he was like, I gotta go. She's like, you're gonna be okay. He was like, no, I gotta go. I gotta go to the
Mhm.
bathroom. Don't worry about it. So he ran. She was like, look for Jen. That's the
Yeah.
last thing on his
Which
mind.
now I realize, and this is crazy that I haven't put these things together until you said something, but his
Mhm,
stomach was definitely bubbling because he ate the oyster and she didn't.
mhm.
Mhm.
um, and so Mitch appears out of
Right
nowhere.
next to her. Right next to Emily. And
Mm-mm.
this is one of the, I don't wanna say scariest, but, like, one of the most memorable scenes for me. And, like, even to this day, before I rewatched this movie to prepare for our discussion today, this scene will never leave my brain. It's something about the pacing, it's something about just, like, the longevity, the simpleness of this shot. It's just really scary to me. So now we see Mitch and, Emily, they're sitting on the beach. She feels it seems like she feels a little relieved now that they finally found him, and
Mhm,
just like the discussion on the patio the night before was kinda weird, this one was even weirder, and just like you said on the porch, it wasn't what he said, it was, like, how he said it. Same thing here, it was almost like he's dreaming or not fully awake. He's talking about the struggles that his wife is going through, definitely kind of like lethargic. Almost like he knows that this is the end, not just for his wife who may or may not be dealing with like dementia or Alzheimer's, but for
mhm,
everyone. And then this man just continues to get up. He says, "Hey, I think I'm gonna go for a swim." And he just keeps walking. And the scariest thing about this scene is that you don't realize he's in danger until it's, like, already too late. And at that
mhm.
point, he's just gone. He just disappears. And that I don't know about you, but this scene was like I was like this, like, looking at my "Oh my god," like, he's just gonna
But
keep
he was
going.
but he was he I thought he was gonna have all his clothes on, like, but he did
Mm,
manage to take his shirt off at least.
mhm.
But as he was walking, I was like, "How far is the sand?" Because he was out
She
there,
was out there, yeah. This I don't know
and
where this house is, but it might be somewhere, like, further south where, like, the beaches are very shallow, but still, he
uh-huh,
was walking for a minute, right? He was
and and she was just screaming. She was like, "Ned, Ned!"
up until he's just like, as you see in the
I
f
know you
in
see
the
the top of
there we
his
go.
head,
In the
and
photo
then he was
right
like
there, you see his whole body, and it's just a little top of his head, and then he's just gone,
he was like,
and
"Boop,"
then he's just gone. Yep, he just
and she's standing
disappears.
there staring, like, "What's going on here?" But meanwhile, Randall had went to the door to check on Miss Jan, and he said, "I'm going to open the door because she's puking her guts out." So
Mhm.
he's going through a situation. She's trying to figure out, could Mitch walk on water? Obviously, he couldn't because he just kept going. It was gone. But I think because it's like, why do you need to go to the water? Your wife is upstairs sick. I was like, there got to be a meaning to this, and
Yeah.
I have a theory later on. So she's looking, and then finally she was gonna like, why she wait so long? I thought she was gonna at least try to run to him at some point. I don't know. It was weird, but then she
I
stepped on something because she
Oh,
was
now
finally gonna go.
this is some crazy stuff right here. Um, whatever is in the air and is infecting or in the water and in the air and seemingly in like everything at this point is really getting to all the characters here because she runs after
Hmm.
Mitch after she realized that he can't be seen and he's not actually going to swim and then looks down and the beach is just absolutely littered with Um, these it's definitely it's not a Portuguese man of war, but it is some
Mm-mm.
sort of jellyfish that is supposed to be modeled after Portuguese man of war, which are one of the most deadly jellyfish that you can find. I
Mm-hmm.
used to work in an aquarium. That's the only reason why I know this. I'm not like a
Did
big
they have
brainiac.
any there? Did they
No,
have
they're
any?
it's highly illegal to have them in captivity because they're that
Oh wow.
dangerous. Yes, but they're
Wow.
also really gross looking. In real life, they're actually kind of a more translucent and blue tint, but in this
Mm-hmm.
movie, I actually think is scarier this way that they're kinda like this fleshy tone.
Mm-hmm.
She sticks her
Well,
foot in there and, oh, the
yeah,
noises too, especially
I
if you
know.
have, like, headphones on and
And then she lifts her foot up and got this worm thing in there, and
Yeah,
she's just
oh
like
my god.
screaming and hollering and crawling and trying to get away, like, and then
Parasite
she's
all up
screaming
in
for
her foot.
Mitch, and Mitch
Yeah,
got
he's in the
the
bathroom
explosive
occupied.
diarrhea.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly, and I also do really like, the scene which is crazy how fast this all happens, but after she steps in the Portuguese man of war goop, and she's, like, dragging herself off of the beach to go get, Randall for help so he can help her, not knowing that he's dealing with extreme bubble guts upstairs, um, but she's at the bottom of the steps from the beach to the beach house, and she just
Mhm.
looks up, and it's, like, a mile of steps, and she's down 1 foot, which is kind of, like, for the viewer, like, "Oh my god," with, like, she gets in for it now.
I think we've all experienced what Randall is
Oh,
experiencing.
absolutely.
Not
Mhm.
I don't know. Oh my god, I have some horror stories, but that's another moment. So, yeah, so she goes in there, she's like, "Oh my god, I got to get this thing out of here." She's screaming for Mitch. Poor Mitch, he's going through it. Poor Jan,
Mhm.
whatever's happened to her.
Yeah.
And it's just so much good. Mitch, he just disappeared at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, it's just a lot has happened. Now, 50 minutes went by already. By the time she stepped on whatever that was, it was 50 minutes of this movie went by. I think they could have shortened that. I think a lot of the conversation was just, I don't know. It could have been shortened. I don't know. What do you think? At this point, 50 minutes and nothing's happening.
Mhm.
Almost an hour.
I just a little bit. I did like how we were almost, like, faked out, in
Mhm.
the beginning, thinking that Randall was going to be the source of something, but then at the end of the day, the relationship dynamic between he and Emily doesn't really matter because it's not really about either of them, it's about what the hell is going on this beach right now. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I think maybe if we could have shortened it by, like, 15 minutes, that would have been better, but hey, maybe it's about, like, budgeting, maybe they wanted to make it a certain because this movie is not very long, right? It's like an hour and a half, which is
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
personally, that's prime time
Yeah,
movie
that
length
is.
right there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not with the whole 3-hour movie. I mean, I'll do it, but, like, I'm gonna need to take a bathroom break in the middle, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think we could have shortened it a little bit. I don't know if all of the dialogue was necessary, especially, um, the monologue on the porch with Mitch and Emily or the dinner conversation. I think it could have been just a little bit less, just a little
Yeah.
bit. But if they're just trying to make, for time, like, I do get
Mhm.
it. Maybe if this film had a little bit bigger of a budget, then maybe we would have seen less dialogue and more ooey gooey. Because I know the ooey gooey can get a little expensive, in the
Mhm.
industry. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but for the first time watch, it was fun because it led me down the wrong path. But the
It did.
second time watch, I was more like, hurry up, like, let's get to it. So I'm with you. Yeah.
Mhm. And so Emily, after she steps on that, she's upstairs. Now she got to figure it out. So she pours something on her foot. It looks like
It was vinegar. It was
vinegar.
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 Ouch.
She's screaming and hollering, and so she decides to start
Oh,
pulling
this
out.
visual. This visual
But
is
you know what?
insane.
When it first, because when she got here at home, she decided to um look at her foot again. By that time, the wormy thing has been in there, and then
Yeah.
you see it go
It's like
like the last bit.
it
I
just
would have
like
took the
poked
foot
its
off.
head out. Right?
That
It's
would have been it.
throw the whole foot away. Throw the whole foot away. For real.
So
I'm
she
never
got
walking on that thing again.
some barbecue tongues or whatever you use that to turn chicken
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
start pulling that thing out of her foot.
That was tough. And I will say, like, this is it's not, you know, AMC money, huge budget type horror.
Mhm.
So and I don't want to like poo-poo on the actors or anything. I think they both did a great job for what they were hired to do. But I was a little bit eye rolly with their acting in this whole first 50 minutes. The dialogue was just kind of weird. They didn't seem like a real couple. I could tell that it was acting. And then we get to this part, and when Emily is on the floor, like screaming, hooting, and hollering because she's pulling this parasite out of her foot, I'm like, okay, like this is scream queen business right now. And her screams and her yelps and her just like jitters of pain, where I think were
Mhm.
very impressive. Were that was some good stuff right there. Cause I'm on my couch, right? And I'm kind of like clenching up, like, oh, because I feel like I had a parasite in my foot, I'd be screaming and squirming around just as much, probably a little bit more than she is right now. But I
Mhm.
was very impressed by the scene, both by the practical effects of the worm, like when it dips its head back into her foot, and then just her display of just absolute pain and suffering. I was like, okay, this is why she was cast for this job.
I don't think I would have been able to pull out my foot.
Listen, I
I
would
don't know. I
love
think
to
I would
say
have
that I
just took the
could.
foot off.
Wouldn't that be just like a little bit easier? Just take the whole thing off.
I don't know. That's just like anything. You know what? The worst thing happened to me walking barefoot. That's why when I go
Mhm.
outside now, I do not walk barefoot
Mhm.
anymore in outside in anything. Um, I used to walk outside all the time barefoot just to go outside. One day after rain, I decided to go and run outside to my sister's car. And as I was coming back, I stepped on a slug and
Mm.
squished all in my toes.
Ooh, nice.
And you know what I
Delicious.
did? I ran in the house and cleaned my foot on the carpet.
No.
But I was a teen.
Uh-huh.
I was dumb. And I never looked. I was like, no way. And it was a thick one too, because I fell as soon as I put down. So seeing stuff with feet coming out or you step in it, it's just
Mm.
oh. Woo. Anyway, but this is not the worst part. Then it starts getting good. Now that she pulled that out her foot, she wrapped it up. um, and behind her, you see Randall like on the ground sliding himself, which I thought was like, okay, this is weird. And she was like, where you been? What's going on? And then you see what happened to him. Like he had an encounter with Jan.
With Jane. With
Jan
the
didn't leave her
eyes.
cell. The
No.
eyes. I seen those eyes in another movie, and I'm trying to remember.
Oh, it's Sugar Hill. The zombies in Sugar Hill. They had the white
Okay, that
eyes
too, but
like the,
that's
metallic
one.
eyes
I
like
think
that.
there's another movie, and I can't. Oh, um, oh, forget it. Just no, that's not it. I was gonna
It
say Demon Knight, but they're green.
it's
There's
gonna
another
come to
movie.
you like 3 in the
Yeah,
morning.
it's yeah, and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
message you.
let
Guess
me
what it
know when you
is?
find out, yeah.
um, but so she come up out of there looking like that. No, but see, Randall came out of there. What were they doing?
Well, Randall explains later that so he goes in the bathroom to help Jane. Because
Mm-hmm.
remember, before he's like banging on the door, she's throwing up, and he's like, I'm coming in, I'm coming in. And then the next thing we see after she takes a parasite out of her foot is this. And even Emily's like, what happened in there? And he's like, I don't know. Like, I don't remember. I just passed out. It was like I was sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly that oyster is doing the business on this man. Not only did that oyster give him the bubble guts, it also gave him something else.
um, at this point. I laughed. I laughed at Jan because even though she does look creepy, it was like it was very slow mo, and they're
Mhm,
crawling
mhm.
on the ground. Emily's trying to get Randall up, and then as they go down the stairs and fall down the stairs, and then Jan just fell down the stairs too. I was like, "What is this?" I
That was kinda ridiculous, but that does let you know that, like, whatever like, that lady's dead now, and, like, whoever
mean,
this lady is, like, that's not her anymore. This is, like, some sort of something entity, but all girl Jan is she's gone. That's not her anymore.
and they finally they were it took them about what 20 minutes for them to get outside from right here because it felt
A
like
hot minute, yeah.
forever. Because he's like,
Yeah.
it's just
You
like,
see,
come on, come on.
you started laughing when they fell down the stairs. I started
Mhm.
laughing when Jan busts through the glass window to go after them. I don't know if
Oh
you
my
remember
gosh.
that,
She
but
was like
they rush
pushing
outside.
and
Yeah, on
banging, and they
the
still
window
didn't go
pane.
nowhere. I was like, what's taking them so long? And then she just like, it was very slow mo. And they still taking forever. I was like, okay, when are we going to get to there? So they're still running. He's sweating. And at this point, in this photo, Jan is behind them, like getting up or on their way. And then they're trying to get away. It took them forever. But see, now it's like this dusk or whatever, but then it gets worse and worse. This clouds is turning brown, and I don't know. At this point, we still don't know what is going on. I don't know. What do you think? Like it doesn't really.
I don't remember at what point, but there is a point where because Emily here she is a chemist and she's also into like astrobiology. Is that what it
Mhm,
was? So she has a little bit of experience with organisms. And even there was, and I didn't catch it the first time, obviously, because it was my first watch and I was so focused on Randall. But my second watch, I noticed there is a heavy bit of foreshadowing at the dinner that they have the night before. When
mhm,
Jan asks Emily, "Oh, what do you study in school?" She says, "I'm in chemistry, but I want to study astrobiology." "Oh, what is that?" And she basically tells her kind of like the answer of what we're dealing with right now before they even
mhm.
know that it's going to happen. But she basically says something along the lines of, you know, um, like where new organisms kind of meet old organisms, and depending on how our elements shift up, finding a way to thrive. And she does say that most likely will happen at the bottom of the ocean. And so that's heavy, heavy foreshadowing right there. And so I'm remembering at this point that she does remember that, and that obviously can't be for nothing, right? So obviously it's something having to do with the water. Mitch just disappeared into the water. Um, and I think at this point the taps stop working. The
And
taps start
some
working and
sludge stuff coming out of there.
yes. So it's something in the water and based on because that's really the only explanation that we get. A lot of this movie is just kind of like it be happening, you know? Like this isn't really a movie that's like here is the lore and this is exactly what happened. It's just kind of like this freak thing that we only get hints in and just kind of enjoy the goo while you're in it, I guess. Um but something having to do with the microbes in the ocean and new life finding a way to live when the elements match up perfectly. And I guess in this case, this is what this looks like, which is so scary. Oh my god. But anyway, they leave the house.
They leave the house. They actually called and say, "Hey, what's going on? What is this?" And they're like, "It's not fog." So then it's like dun dun dun.
Mm,
Okay.
and what
So
is
they
it?
break into this house. They finally got to get somewhere. So they get into this house and poor Randall, he's like he's sweating
Right.
profusely, just gurgling stomach. It's just so much going on with this poor guy. And she's getting the effects of this. So even though she didn't eat the oysters, she's still, hallucinating and getting dizzy. And then she started
Hmm.
holding her gut. So it's like, so I guess there's microparticles maybe in the air that's making them
Yeah.
do or
For
whatnot.
sure. It's in the air. It's in the everything. The air, the
Yeah.
water, the oysters. Just give up.
It's Let's give up. It just kept getting worse and worse for them. Now, when they get into this house, they're trying to find shelter. They're trying to close the windows. And then she's like, okay, I need to go look around this house. So she comes to this basement and she decides, you know what? I'm going to go down here and check it out. So she goes down there and then she turns on the light because she hears something and notices something. And I don't know. I didn't get the picture because I was gonna post it, but I was like, it may be a little bit too much for this, and I don't want nobody
Uh,
to stop my video because it was very disgusting of what I was looking at. But can you describe what that was? Because I watched it twice and I paused it and I was trying to figure it out. Like
mhm.
I see the guy laying there and he got all this slime and stuff coming out of his mouth, but then that thing on top of him looked like the monster from Poltergeist 2 that he barfed up and
Mhm.
ran across the room. But I couldn't understand what that meant. What was it, merging or
Well,
I don't
the
know.
only thing that I know at this point is that whatever kind of plague, I guess let's just call it a plague to be simple. Whatever this plague is coming from like microbes in the ocean, the particles are in the air, they're in the water, and they're like spreading to healthy hosts, which is, that we do know that's how plagues work. So that's why everyone is getting explosive diarrhea. That's why everybody's gurgling. That's why everybody's sweating like this. Because they're infected by parasites that are coming from the ocean, making them delusional, amongst all these other things. Then Emily is she really has that final girl mentality. Luckily, of her educational background, is able to kind of figure this out. So when she comes in the house, she like duct tapes the cracks in the doors shut so no new air can come in, so no new particles can come in. Luckily, by whatever miracle, God will do it. The people whose house this is seem to be like divers, since they are
Mm-hmm.
still on the beach, scuba divers, so there's cans of oxygen. She's like, "Oh, great." So she's using the oxygen to breathe instead of breathing the air. Then goes down, actually, I think she finds the cans of oxygen when she goes down to the basement. There we go.
Yeah.
So she goes down to the basement and sees this thing, which to me, this is I registered what I was looking at as this is kind of like the final form of the parasite when it takes over you. Because somewhere around this time of the movie, Randall, like, he coughs up like a worm parasite, obviously telling us
Yeah.
that, like, something is in him that's gonna take
Mhm.
over him. Emily goes to the basement and basically sees what he's about to become, which is a man, or what once was a man. I'm assuming it's somebody who lived in this house or somebody else who lived in the neighborhood. And it's kind of like oozing and melting on top of another man. And based on my very, very, very limited knowledge in chemistry and biology, this seems
Mhm.
to me like a parasite finding new suitable hosts and spreading, because that's how, like, parasites spread, and through budding and whatever. It's been a long time since I've been in college, but and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, this is how
Mhm.
the parasite will, in this case, like, take over. And that's why I think something switched in Emily at this moment. She goes upstairs and gives Randall the business, because she sees, this is what is in store for you. It's what's in store for poor Jan. Probably Mitch at the bottom of the ocean is probably exponentially, like, he's all up in it. You know what I mean? It was good though. I wish that we would have seen a little bit more of that, of the ooey gooey. Almost like, in my brain, it's kind of like, I the first things I thought was, um, Tarman and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, kind of
Mhm.
like melded. That's what it looked
And
like.
and and Slither.
And
They kind of
yeah, you're right,
they
you're
kind
right,
of
you're right.
melted together. You know what I was hoping what would happen? When
What?
she ran back upstairs to Randall, it ran up there with her. That thing down there started creeping through the doorway where she was like trying to figure out
Yeah.
what was going on. I was waiting for that. I was sitting here like, oh, she's still sitting there trying to figure out what's going on with her boyfriend. Girl, he's now an ex. Get over it. Find help, because he over there in the corner. And then the way he changed, his eyes turned white and he kind of flew. Do you see him kind of flew across the I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
That was a little weird. That was a little, because for the
Yeah.
whole rest of this movie, I feel like, I mean, obviously it was an exaggeration, and, as much as plagues, I mean, obviously we have seen what a plague looks like recently. The plagues do happen and mutations do happen. So I kind of felt like a lot of this movie was not so far off from the truth. But then he kinda, like, he turned and then he flew into the dresser a little bit, and I was like, "Okay." Like, I don't know if a parasite will, like, grant you super strength or anything, or, like, almost like he was possessed a little bit, but I guess that was, like, supposed to signify to us, the viewer, that, like, "Oh, he's gone," you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I still would have liked the slug man
Oh, totally.
downstairs to come upstairs
Totally.
and be like, hey,
A
what's
little
going on? Or
wrestling.
something. I know,
Yeah.
give her a reason, because she knocked, he start crawl Randall start crawling to her like, "Ugh." And then she
Still
just,
gurgling.
I know, just slowly knocked him out. I
Well,
mean,
I think she killed him. I
you
do
think so?
think she, yeah,
Because
with the
she hit him
oxygen
with that.
tank. Yeah, I think that's enough to
I
kill
don't think she heard.
somebody.
See, at that point, brains would have been out, because I would have just been,
Repeatedly, just
yeah.
until you are sure. I guess she wasn't entirely sure, but
Mm,
I thought that she had killed him for the reason that she went downstairs, she saw the ooey gooey man, like the final form. I'll just call him the
mhm,
final form, and then she's like, "Oh
mhm.
crap. goes upstairs, see Randall has the white eyes, so that's not far off from him, the final form, right? And so she just
Uh-huh.
stop it before it happened.
See, I would have just knocked out Randall after that conversation at the dinner table.
Right? And we wouldn't have this problem at all because you and I, we would have been in the car on the way back to college, right?
Yeah,
At this
he
very
deserved
moment.
that knockout.
He
I
did.
mean, but by the time she gets outside, I mean, it's just a mess. I mean, it's like there is nowhere to go. I mean, I felt so bad for her because I thought when she put the oxygen to in her mouth to run away, it would have gave her some relief. I mean, there was just no hope in this movie. At least that part when she's in the car, there was nothing.
Yeah, I did think that she had a chance though because it was super final girl of her to think to use the oxygen tank. So at that
Hmm.
point I'm like, "Oh, she's smart. She's going to make it." And then you go outside and you're like, "Oh, damn." This is an obstacle. Even when she gets in the car and drives away, like you're going to drive through that?
I know. Because I like how the camera puts you in the car looking at what
Mhm.
she sees. I mean, it was like, girl, it's so thick. I
Yeah.
drove in some fog that looked like that. That's
Scary.
scary. It is
Mhm.
scary. And people be going 100 miles an hour. It's like, mm-mm. So she's twisting and turning, and I'm just waiting for her to go off the cliff because there is no way she could see anything. But instead of going off the cliff, she hit a tree. Was it a tree or a pole?
Yeah. Yeah, she had a
Yeah.
tree. Or a tree or a pole or something like that. Mhm.
Yeah. Knocked out. Wake up. The truck is filled with whatever that is. She crawling out, just crawling, crawling, crawling. She finds a puddle and goes in it.
Yeah, well, she falls in the puddle. She's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
trying to get away and then, of course, falls into another body of water, which most likely has the stuff in it, parasitic whatever. So, after she falls into this other puddle after getting out of the car, you're like, "Alright, that's it. That's it."
yeah.
Now I'm just thinking about she's got that open
Poor
wound in
girl.
her foot, it's all in her eyes and nose, and this is this is probably it for old girl. Good
Yeah,
run
it
though.
was.
Good run.
I know she tried, but this is where I was completely lost. Maybe you
Yeah,
can help me. I love to hear other people's
I
perspective.
I would love to say that I could help you, but I think I need help myself. I really like this as an ending. Um, I kind of I like the whole, nobody gets out alive. I don't mind it, for
Hmm.
me, like, I love a good final girl, but it it's a little surprising, like, when nobody makes it, and so I was down for that. So at the end, you see the next morning, she somehow well, not somehow, we know how, the whatever parasite that's taken over her, that we knew would take over her from that nasty puddle, did and brought her back to the water, but she's, like, murmuring, like, "Don't be scared, don't be scared,
Yeah.
don't be scared," which I thought was weird because none of the other people, after they had been infected with this parasite, would speak. They just kinda, like, moan a little bit and gurgle maybe, but nobody else spoke, and she was, like, clearly speaking. I also don't know, like, what the significance of "Don't be scared" was, because it was the first time I heard it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it was earlier
I
in the film.
Randall had told her when they were in the bedroom when he was trying to convince her to drop out of school and just be with him.
Uh-huh.
He said that.
Mm,
He said it was
mm,
so fast though. I mean, you had to pay attention, but I
mhm.
don't know what that meant. Um, I don't know. And then,
I don't know either.
but I think did Mitch eat some oysters?
Yes.
Okay, then my theory about that is irrelevant.
I
I
think the
don't know.
perfect ending for me, like, if I mean, I do like this ending, but I think if she were to just be washed up on the beach, kinda instead of saying don't be scared, don't be scared, if she were just kind of gurgling a little bit and that's how she went out, I would be cool. I would be cool with that. But now I feel like I have to decipher something, which I don't really think makes a whole lot of sense. It might just be in there to just make you think about something. I don't know. But I kind of
I
like
don't
the
know.
whole like, this is a tragic story of what happened on a beach over the course of 2 days. And
It was only
then
two
everybody
days.
or something like that. It must have been,
Yeah,
because they were only there. The whole movie is like a day and a half, so probably like 2 days or something. But it was tragic, and then everybody died, and like look how crazy the story was. But now I'm like, don't be scared. Like you should be scared of a lot. Everybody's
I
dead.
don't know. The waves hit her. She didn't fizzled away. I
Yeah.
couldn't. I have no idea. I have no idea. This film felt like there were so many unanswered questions. I saw the potential. The first 50 minutes, I was like, what's going on? Like it took too long. But then once it picked up, it was like, oh, okay, she got Mitch is crazy because he weren't out there. We got some in her foot, people throwing up. I mean, it's like, oh, okay, this is getting good. It's coming out a zombie apocalypse. And then
Mhm.
it was just like, uh, what is she saying and why? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting film. I saw so much. It almost had that Lovecraft kind of feel to it.
Oh,
I don't know if that
absolutely.
was what. Yeah, I
Totally.
yeah.
Like Lovecraftian. Yeah, like if this were like a series of something and like Cthulhu popped up, as like, oh, and it just turns out that like Cthulhu like sent, these microbes from the ocean to go and like kind of do his bidding type thing, like that could fit, like this is very like ocean Lovecraftian. And I think that's why I liked it, because I like all that kind of cosmic gooey stuff, which
Mhm.
is why I love this film so much. It's obviously not perfect, but it's
Yeah.
it's more of like a visual for me. I'm not really taking it as more than it is surface level. I think it was
Mhm.
shot really well. It was pretty. It had a couple scenes that really had me like, you know? And yeah, and then the movie ends and then I'm like, "Oh wow, that was great. On to the
So
next one." I
you
don't
know
have to think about it much.
yeah, my theory about Mitch going into the water, because he was obviously infected in some way for him to just like take off, right?
Mhm.
Maybe it needed the water. Maybe the way they were looking and suffering is because they needed to get back to the water.
Yeah, I think that's
I
totally
mean,
correct. Absolutely.
so
I
I
think
don't
you're
think it
right.
was yeah, I don't think Jan was trying to get them. I think it just needed the water because
Mhm,
she's at the water and she doesn't look as messed up as the other ones. And
mhm.
then she's still some kind of conscious about something and go into the
Yeah,
water.
I think you're
Yeah.
right. I really think that whatever this plague is, this parasite, like, okay, if you think about it in like terms of science, I know that science doesn't really matter with fantasy like this, but like, let's just
Hmm.
pretend that it did. Parasites want two things. They want water and they want a healthy host. So it's got to be one of those two. And that's really the only two things that we saw, these monsters going after. And you're right, like Jan didn't seem as like deteriorated as the rest
Hmm.
of them. So maybe she wasn't actually trying to follow and, you know, take over their bodies. Maybe she was just trying to get back to the water. You could be right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause then there was the other neighbor that came creeping around the corner. And
Yeah.
then remember, they were in the basement. So there was no water. So maybe it was just turning
Anything.
into, yeah, it just because
Mhm.
it needed something, and maybe he
Something.
was
Mhm.
dying already, the
Yeah,
thing in the basement.
I think
So
that's right. Not that we'll ever know
there's
the answer, but
I
I would
know,
like to
right?
believe that that's correct.
Well, our theories are good, so we're gonna stick to them.
Yeah.
I do love horror movies that give us a bunch of like ideas like, oh, it could be this, it could be that, maybe this, maybe that. That's good. That's good
Yeah.
conversation. So the next time you watch it, you might see something else we ain't see right now. It
Listen,
happens
I'm
all
gonna
the
need a
time.
couple months. I'll get back to you in like 6 months before I need to watch this one again. I need a break. I need some, like, very, very dry horror for the next, like, 2 or so weeks. I don't want anything wet. I don't want anything wet.
Yeah. Nothing wet. We don't want anything
No,
wet.
no.
Needs not in our movies.
Yeah, no.
So we'll leave it at that. Anyway, um, thank you so much, Zero. This was a lot of fun talking to you again, many times. Like this is like
Always. Always
third.
a good time.
Wait, second. Is this your? I don't know.
This
How
is
many Shudderary?
my
This is my
my
third one.
third my third Shudderary, yeah.
Wow. And it could be the last.
Uh-oh. Eyebrows. Ho
I
ho.
will talk about that tomorrow.
Stay tuned,
There's
folks.
many reasons of why this would probably be the last one. But
Save
we'll
it,
talk about
save
that
it.
tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna talk about it right now because thank you so much, Zero Gravity. You are amazing. I Everything about you, I just absolutely love. I do appreciate you. Appreciate all your opinions and your thoughts and stories and that really cool director's chair you got. I'm so mad. I mean, you was like, let me put this on here and sat in it. I was like, oh, and it was Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yes.
And that's my favorite.
It's in the it's in the corner over there. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see
don't be
it.
trying to show out.
Oh. Just show off a little bit.
So before I let you go, if you guys have not seen, so if you're watching this and like, what is this movie? It is The Beach House. It is currently streaming on Shudder. And if you have seen it and you're just here chilling with us, thank you so much. And make sure you follow Zero Gravity. And one more time, Zero Gravity, where can people find you?
Y'all can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Letterboxd, anything really. My handles are always at IDK Gravity. I don't know, Gravity. Or you can listen to my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast fix. Just search up Blurty Massacre.
Thank you. And oh, hold on. Something always happen.
Oh, don't drink that water. Don't drink that water. You don't know what's in there.
And it's actually water. Oh man. So if I'm like,
Oh no, gurgling at 3 a.m.
it's your fault. I will find you and get you. And I know you're about
No.
3,000 miles away, but I'll still find you. So stick around for a second, Zero, after this. But thank you everyone for watching. I do appreciate it. Make sure you leave a comment, tell your friends, share this. This means so much to me. And thank you so much. Follow Zero Gravity. She's amazing. And thank you everyone out there. Until next
Thanks,
time.
y'all.
Oh, before there's one more tomorrow. Make sure you check out the last Shudder at 4 o'clock with the Ebro Tyrone because there's a lot of information we're going to talk about. It is the finale. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.